Good Wednesday, my friends. I'm just making sure that the live is starting before I get going. I'm now live. Isn't that awesome? Um, hello. I can never get over the fact that Facebook, once you go live and you're actually live on air, they pop up questions to you like, here's a tip for going live. It's quite distracting. Hello. I'm obviously not in my customary setting. I'm actually in a hotel in Las Vegas. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I am in a hotel in Las Vegas. I am at the Promax Station Summit conference, which is a conference for not for voice actors, but a conference for affiliate news organizations to come and be with their people and talk about their work and how to make it better and all those good things. So I tag along with a posse of other voice actors who work in the arena of affiliate promo. And so, we kind of get to know the business a little better and hopefully hook up with a couple of our clients to say hello and put a face to a voice and all those kinds of things. So that's where I am. I housekeeping may knock on the door at any time because I didn't have a little tag to put out "Do Not Disturb," so that may happen. Um, let's see, what else was I going to say? I went to. I lost my glasses yesterday, my prescription glasses. So I had to go down at like, I think it was 1 in the morning, and buy myself some readers so that I could actually see the screen to be able to do this today. So this was the best I could do. I don't know. What do you think? Oh my gosh. You know, I'd like to say why I lost my glasses, but I don't want to say anything that might incriminate me. And, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. So, all right, now that I have all that ridiculousness out of the way, please do let me know that you're here. I hope that you're here. This. I haven't done a live with you in several weeks. Just happened to be my good fortune to get some work, and they happened to fall on Wednesdays, so I just was unable to be with you. So this topic has been bandied about for a few weeks now, and we're actually going to get to it. So make yourselves known, say hello. Larry, Chris, Lorena, how are you? Um, oh my gosh, are you serious? Rebecca Reedy just said that my glasses are in her purse. And if that is true, my day is made. I'm so happy. That's great. Yes, no rush, Becky, if that's true. That's just fantastic. That just shows you, like, how does somebody put their glasses in their purse when they're not? It's very funny. As I said, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Um, I'm sharing a room with the lovely Rebecca Reedy, and it's just been fun. So anyway, serious. Okay. Oh, that's so great. You have my glasses. That's fantastic. That is really good news. All right. Yeah, Vegas, baby. Okay. Larry has them. All right, you guys, I'm sorry. I don't want to waste any more of your time with this. So, excuse me. The topic of the day, and I confess to you that much like marketing, it's is the this whole topic of the business of voiceover is not my bailiwick. Like, I am obviously not going to advise you with regard to whether you should have you should be a sole proprietor, or you should have an LLC type of a corporation, or a C corp or an S corp. So, um, so in essence, I'm just going to share with you what I did when I did it, and then encourage you to seek out like professional advice about this, including a CPA, right? because a CPA can advise you for your particular life and your particular work, your particular circumstance, where you live, what state you live in. They can best advise you about whether or not to incorporate and how to incorporate and what entity you should become or secure, right? So um, let's see, where do I start? I incorporated in 1999. Okay, and I did so by way of an accountant who with whom I began doing my taxes, my corporate taxes, and my personal taxes. So I incorporated in 1999, and I initially became an S corp. Okay, and the difference between an S corp and a C corp, and again, this is just me in my. This isn't like take all of this with a grain of salt. But an S corp is one, again, really, really rudimentary here, is one where whatever money you have remaining at the end of the year in your corporate account, after you've paid out all your expenses, all your totally deductible expenses from your corporate account, any net that you have in your account automatically rolls over into your personal account, right? So the goal of an S corporation is that it's zeroed out every year at the end of the year, and your net profit rolls over to you personally. How that happens, again, is a question for a CPA, your accountant. Okay, a C corporation is different, right? In a strange sense, the goal again as a what do I want to say? It's a personal service corporation. When it's just just us, right? But that may be a legal and technical term that doesn't apply here. But it's like corporations. You are the corporation, right? You are the entity, right? So a C corporation, to a certain degree, yes, you also want to sort of zero out your account at the end of each fiscal year, because you want to sort of reduce your net profit so that you're paying less tax, right? And so there are different things available to C corporations and S corporations. The kinds of retirement plans you can offer yourself as an employee of the corporation, the maximums that you can put into those kinds of accounts, right? Certain things that you can deduct and the levels at which you can deduct them and all that. There are slight differences there between a C corp and an S corp. Okay, I know very, very little about LLCs. In fact, let me just say that I know nothing about LLCs, but I do know that a lot of people in voiceover, that is the entity that they engage when they sort of step into, like, I'm earning enough money, I have enough deductions to make this make sense that I incorporate, right? So I know that it's a very popular entity with which to engage when you're doing this. If you have an LLC and you want to sort of chime in and say, yeah, here's the benefit to this, awesome. This is one of those Facebook Lives where it's like, let's share. Let's share our knowledge. So the things that I will say, right? Like because when you create a corporate entity, you must file taxes for that corporate entity, and they are separate from your personal taxes, which means that you are going to pay tax, right? If you're in the state of California, there's an $800 minimum corporate tax every year, regardless of your income, right? So you are going to pay tax, and you are going to pay for the services of an accountant. That's a must, right? So there are expenses that go along. And when you pay yourself right? This is one of the benefits of being a corporation, certainly with a C corporation, which is what I'll speak to, right? Since that is what I am. I am an employee of the corporation. And so I'm not hired by Disney. I'm not hired by Nickelodeon. I'm not hired by Whedon and Kennedy, right? They engage the services of my corporation, right? And I do the work, and then my corporation pays me. And in this way, what you're doing is you effectively control your income, right? And and so you will pay you will pay payroll taxes too, right? There are all kinds of expenses that go along with starting a corporation, and which is why there's usually an income threshold that you really should meet before you incorporate. Okay. When I incorporated in 1999, the conventional wisdom about how much money you needed to earn to make starting a corporation viable and make economic sense was $100,000 a year. That was the threshold. It's like if you are making over $100,000 a year, you should really incorporate because you're not getting all the tax benefits that you can. Now, that's 23 years ago. The tax code has changed. Voiceover has changed. What we consider, what the threshold is now, I couldn't say. And it may be that with LLCs, that's a much lower threshold. Again, I'm not sure, but I do know that they're complicated enough that once I became incorporated, I hired the services of professionals to do my taxes, right? And to help me with payroll and to, all of those things. Again, I'm not sure what that level is, but it's out there. And again, this is stuff you want to seek advice. I think it's helpful to seek out information from your colleagues if you're close to people who are willing to share that kind of information with you. I think that's great. But again, remember they have their own lives. They live in their own states. They live with their own tax laws and all of that, right? And they have their own households to run. And it's different than you. Like everybody I know and that I'm closest to, with whom my career might look similar, we have different modes of operation, right? When it comes to our corporations. So gather information, right? This is my biggest thing. Like gather information from wherever you can, and then seek the advice of a professional tax person. It is certainly helpful if you, and this is where talking to your friends is great. If you work with an accountant who's familiar with the acting world, right? Who understands, the acting and recording world, who understands the kinds of deductions that we take and the kinds of things that are viable expenses for us that we can pay for through our corporations, right? Because that's always helpful. Because again, everything is so specialized, right? What things are deductible for what particular business, So I'm gonna stop for a second and just go and see what y'all are saying. I'm on. Good. Hey. Great. Oh, good. Okay. So wow, I don't have any questions yet. I'm so mesmerizing. So again, generally speaking, the benefits to being incorporated, I will tell you the benefits that I perceive from my own experience, right? I haven't really had enough coffee. I haven't had any coffee. That's tea. I'm drinking tea. It's sad. Medical expenses can be paid from your corporation. They are deductible, right? They are fully deductible. And so whenever you're paying straight out of your corporate account, out of your corporate funds, um, those are all pre-tax dollars, right? Um, so so medical expenses are a viable expense. So it's pre-tax dollars, right? Does that make sense? As opposed to if I were to pay myself a salary, that gets deposited into my personal account, and then I pay my medical expenses out of my personal account, which is not deductible personally until it meets a certain threshold percentage of my income, which is essentially it's catastrophic, has to be catastrophic for it to be deductible. Um, it is immediately deductible if you're paying through the corporation, right? And it's pre-tax dollars, and all of it is deductible. Obviously, travel expenses when you're going to and from, work, um, the equipment, all of that, right? It's all of our customary expenses that we engage. It's all deductible, correct? So, so you end up sort of squeezing out more value of your dollar, if you will, by being incorporated. And I'll tell you something that I learned a long time ago, like in the very very early 1990s, when I really wasn't. I was doing voiceover, but I was also like, oh, I was still at waiting tables and all of that. And I was a singer at the time, and I thought, I used to sing at a lot of weddings, and I thought, wow, I should put together a little business where I, contract out to do weddings, and I knew a few singers, and I thought I could contract them out too, and I could sort of start my own little business. So I did this, and I didn't do anything. I didn't obviously I wasn't making any money, and so I wasn't incorporating. I didn't do anything with regard to a tax entity, not an LLC, not a sole proprietorship, not a DBA, nothing. I just was like, I'm going to start a little business, and I had all kinds of marketing things printed up, and to the two. I want to say maybe I spent like $5,000. Um, was it that? I think it was. I think it was that. It was around that much money. I can't remember exactly. But so on my personal taxes, they were like, "Do you own a business, or do you run a business?" And I was like, "Yes, I do, an at-home business. What is it?" Blah blah. I fill all that out, and then I'm like, "And here are all my expenses that I want to deduct, because they are for my business, and isn't that how this works?" And I ended up getting audited that year, and it was all about the fact that I deducted all these business expenses, but I wasn't a business entity. And had I made money at it, right? Then it was like, all right, you're a viable business, but you haven't made a dime at it, and so you can't deduct these things on your personal income tax, right? So I learned, and then I ended up with a tax bill and all that. But what I learned was like, oh, you don't just get to deduct stuff, from your personal account when you're starting a business, right? Um, so again, that also that it's a benefit of being incorporated, that everything that is, your computer, obviously your gear, any expenses related to your booth, just all like your printer, everything, right, that you use to conduct your business is deductible from a corporate entity, right? And again, the tax consequences of all these different entities is like, it's diverse, and I know nothing about it. Um, let me see if we have any. Okay. Catherine, yes, you can. This will go up. This will go up when it's done. When we're done, the video will go. It'll be saved, so it's all good. Okay, Genevieve, is it something that should be considered early on, or once you've been at it for a little while? Definitely once you've been at it for a while. Again, and the reason for that is corporations are expensive to operate. And so you need to be making enough money to operate it without it um, being a detriment to your livelihood, right? Um, because no matter what, even if you have a crappy year, you're going to have to pay your accountant to file your taxes and to do your quarterlies and all that kind of stuff, right? So the expenses go on even if you have bad years, right? And so you want to be in a place where you have enough going on that you can meet the expense of the corporation. Ultimately, the goal of the corporation, this is the sole reason that people are incorporated. It's to save money. It's to it's to not be hit so hard with taxes, right? Um, and the goal is really not to have a profit per se, right? Because you pay taxes on your profit, and and it depends upon who's in office in Washington as to how much that corporate tax is. You know, I know that it was just raised, the corporate tax after it had been lowered for the last several years, but is now coming back up. And so, but nonetheless, like you are paying tax on your net profit, right? Where personally the taxes come off the top and you get what's left, right? And so it's a little bit the other way around with a corporation. So it's not something that you should engage early on unless you like got thrown in the deep end and you're making a lot of money. You know, the one of the first years that I made a significant income, I was not incorporated, and I was stunned how much tax I had to pay. Like it exponential, you know, and that's how it is really. Like it's a tiered system of taxing, right? So again, this is a topic where so much research needs to be done, and you need to figure out what the threshold is that makes whatever corporate entity you choose that makes it make sense, right? We can make certain amounts of money and we can live and we can pay taxes and it's fair and it's right and we manage and all that. And then, you know, but when your income goes up, it just a corporation becomes a necessary thing, right? So, um, I am, you know, my accountant who I've been with for over 20 years. There was a period of time when I was first incorporated where I was so precise about my bookkeeping and about my billing and my invoices and all of those things. And she at one point asked me, like, yeah, if voiceover is ever slow for you, you want a job working for me? Like, as like a bookkeeper? I was like, wow, you know, but then I had my daughter. Let me just say that. I had my daughter, my whole life changed. All my priorities changed. And I no longer took the time, really by choice in a certain sense, I no longer took the time to keep my books up um, to the level that I had. It just, your life turns on end. It's like my priorities totally shifted. My time belonged to my daughter, you know? And so I got worse at my bookkeeping. I got like, I would scramble at the end of the year to do, you know, a year's worth of bookkeeping in a week. You know, it was miserable. Um, and uh, and now yeah, I've never hired anybody to do my bookkeeping, which I think is a really good idea. I just want to say, um, because I find that piece of things kind of unmanageable for me. Like, again, my priorities are so different, and I no longer sort of spend my time with numbers. Like I used to really like to do that. But I do want to emphasize the importance of keeping really good books for your sanity, come tax time. The years where I have all my ducks in a row when it's tax season, oh my God, those are good years. Where it's like I'm calm, I'm not pushed, I'm not rushed, I'm not. Um, so I do recommend software, that helps you keep track of your invoicing. I do recommend that you stay on top of balancing your checkbook and allocating your expenses and all of that. And so if it's not something that you want to hire out, because I know that's not reasonable for most of us, there are good, there are good programs that will help you. I know VoiceOver View is a program that helps kind of organize all your stuff, right? So I know that's one of them. Um, but this is a question you want to kind of ask in the group, like, what do you people use to do your bookkeeping? I use QuickBooks, right? And I have online banking with QuickBooks so that I can download all my transactions into my QuickBooks software, and it makes it a whole lot easier than me having to manually enter everything and all that good stuff. Um, so so really, here I've talked, oh my God, for almost 28 minutes, and I feel like I've said virtually nothing. But the upshot of the whole thing is this: um, you need uh, it's like you need to pay attention to the financial aspect of your business in order to really see the benefit of working for yourself, right? Which is independence, and the more the thing that I have feel like I have noticed over the years is that by being incorporated, I'm in better control of my money. And that's what we want, And I don't have a lot of money. It's not like I'm managing, a big portfolio or something like that. But I can, I can contribute to a SEP IRA, which I do. So I have my own IRA account that is it's a it's an employer IRA, right? And my corporation is my employer, right? So, and you can, I want to say, again, check with your own accountant, but I want to say I can, anyone with a C Corp can contribute to a SEP IRA at a maximum of 25% of the gross pay that I've received that particular year. So let's just say my gross pay was $100. I could put $25 into my SEP IRA. If it was $100,000, if I paid myself, not my gross earning, not my gross corporate earnings, but if I paid myself on W-2 income $100,000, the corporation could contribute $25,000 to my SEP IRA. It's the corporation that makes the contribution, not the employee, right? So it's a little wacky, right? There's a lot to understand. So really, in the end, what I can say to you is gather information, compare and contrast C corporations, S corporations, LLCs, sole proprietors. Those are all business entities from which you can choose, right? Compare and contrast them. Use Google, talk to your friends. Consider your particular circumstances. Ask about the threshold. When you talk to a professional tax person, say, how much do you think that should I be making consistently in order for it to make sense for me to incorporate? Huge question, right? It's a very important answer. And I can't tell you what the answer is. So let's see. Yes, Catherine, VoiceOver View is I don't use VoiceOver View. Again, I use QuickBooks, but QuickBooks is just hideous. I just want to say it's like, it's so cumbersome, but I've used it for 22 years. So I'm kind of, you know, I'm a little bit handcuffed to it. But how do I keep track of expenses? Again, Howie, I use QuickBooks to keep track. I have a separate corporate account so that all of my expenses, you know, I pay for all of my corporate expenses through my corporate account. Corporate money goes into it, expenses come out of it. All of that is tracked with my bank statements, which get downloaded into my QuickBooks. And then when I balance my QuickBooks, theoretically every month, I have to designate what those expenses are in what categories they are. So I keep track of my expenses with QuickBooks. There are others out there. So so check out Voiceover View and see what it might offer to you. Voiceoverview.com, I think it is. And then, you know, check around and ask questions, you know, in some reputable voiceover groups. Like, you know, I really like Mark Scott. I think has a really good head on his shoulders. And he tends to be a lot about marketing, but people in the group, you know, they're active working voice actors. And so they're sort of experiencing all these things too. And there's an exchange of information. And obviously feel free to ask in this group on a thread, like post a question, right? If it's the first time you post a question, I'll need to approve it, but that's totally cool. And then you'll be able to post. So, yeah, ask questions, and know, you know, that primary question being like, what's the threshold of income that I need to earn in order for all this to make sense? So, I, you know, this is one of those where I always feel like, oh, I just didn't give you what you really needed, for which I feel terribly, but I only know what I know. And I guess, I just guess I want to acknowledge that the topic is real, right? It's a good and genuine topic for us to talk about and consider. And there are a lot of avenues, that could be successful for you, depending again on your life, your income, how much you're working, the state you live in, all of those good things. So there you go. If you are watching this after the fact, please feel free to ask questions again in the comments section. I will see them and I will answer them as best I can. And if not, I will try to redirect you to someone who can answer. And that's it for today. Thank you for hanging with me. And I will definitely see you next Wednesday. Oh my gosh, get my dates right eventually. All right, I'm going back to the blackjack table. Just kidding. Have a good day.